On my 34th birthday, my parents told me they were diverting every cent of my inheritance to my sister because she had children and I didn't. They assumed I'd nod and accept it. Instead, I asked one question about Grandma. By the next morning, a lawyer had torn their entire scheme apart. That's where the real story starts. If you're following this as a series, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss how it all unravels. And we're always curious, where in the world are you watching from right now? Tell us in the comments. I'd been fighting a migraine for 3 days, the kind that throbs behind your eyes and makes the world look too bright and needle sharp. It was also my 34th birthday. On any normal day, I would have canceled dinner, drawn the blackout curtains in my apartment, ordered clear broth, and slept until dark. But you don't cancel on Thomas and Martha. You definitely don't cancel when they've insisted on reserving a table at Le Jardin, the most self-important French bistro in the city. Specifically to celebrate your big milestone, I got there 10 minutes early, swallowed 2 painkillers in the car, and walked in. The restaurant was loud, clinking cutlery, overdone laughter, the kind of noise that scraped across my nerves. When my parents arrived, they weren't alone. Chloe was with them, my sister. The golden child, the mother of the grandbabies, as Martha always breathed like she was reciting a prayer. Chloe looked flustered, hair in a messy bun, that wild-eyed expression she wore whenever she needed money, a babysitter, or both. "Happy birthday, darling," Martha said, brushing a perfumed kiss against my cheek. Her floral scent hit me like a punch, spiking my nausea. "You look tired. Are you not sleeping again?" "You really should try that herbal tea I sent you a link for." "I'm fine, Mom," I lied, sliding into the booth. "Just a long week." "End of quarter. Work, work, work," Thomas grumbled, dropping into his seat and tugging at his tie. He didn't look at me. He stared at the menu, brow furrowed, though his eyes weren't actually moving over the words. He looked nervous. Thomas prided himself on being in control, the patriarch, the man who made the hard calls. Tonight there was a sheen of sweat on his upper lip. "You focus too much on that job, Jessica." "It's not healthy," he said. "It pays the mortgage," I answered lightly. "For an empty house," Chloe cut in. She snatched up the wine list, flipping through it with unnecessary force. "I still don't get why you need 4 bedrooms, Jess. It's such a waste. The twins are sharing because the extension stalled and you've got guest rooms collecting dust." I took a sip of water, ice clinking against glass. "We're not doing this tonight, Chloe." "It's my birthday." "Exactly," Thomas said. He shut his menu with a sharp snap and set both hands flat on the table. "Which is why we need to talk. We have your gift. Well, not a gift, exactly. A family decision." The waiter appeared, all professional smile, ready to take drink orders. Thomas waved him off with an impatient flick of his hand. "Give us 5 minutes." The silence that followed was thick and suffocating. I looked from Martha, who was folding and refolding her napkin, to Chloe, wearing a small, satisfied smirk, to Thomas, who looked like he was about to launch into a lecture. "Your mother and I have been doing a lot of thinking," he began, dropping into that serious podium voice he'd used all through my teenage years. "About the estate. About Grandma's money." My stomach tightened. Grandma had died 6 months earlier. The grief was still raw for me. The rest of them had seemed to move on as soon as the funeral reception ended. Her will was supposed to be executed next week. "What about it?" I asked. "Well," Thomas cleared his throat, "it's considerable, more than we expected. And we have to consider the needs of the entire family. Equity isn't always equality, Jessica." I knew exactly where this was going. Dread flooded my chest, cold and certain. "Chloe is struggling," Martha cut in, touching my hand with her clammy palm. "3 little ones, the house repairs, her husband's hours being cut. She's drowning, Jessica." "You know that, and you," Thomas said, jabbing a finger in my direction, "are doing fine. Senior position, no dependents, surplus income every month. You don't need a windfall." "So," I said, my voice a little unsteady, "what are you saying?" "We're exercising our discretion as executors," Thomas said, his tone hardening. "We're reallocating the inheritance. Your share, the portion Grandma intended for you, will be transferred to Chloe. It'll clear her debts and finish the house. It's the only moral option." "We knew you'd understand." They just stared at me, expectant, certain. Waiting for me to nod and smile and play my usual role, the competent, childless daughter whose job was to support the real family. I looked at Chloe. She wasn't even pretending to be grateful. She looked victorious. "It's for the kids, Jess," she said, snapping a breadstick in half. "You can't be selfish about the kids." The pain in my head surged white-hot for a moment. When it receded, something else took its place, a cold, sharp clarity. They weren't asking me. They were informing me. They were taking away a life-changing amount of money. Money Grandma had specifically promised me on those long Sunday afternoons at her house, and they were wrapping it in moral language to make themselves feel righteous. The betrayal felt like a precise surgery, cutting me cleanly out of my own family. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. The air in the restaurant felt thin, like their audacity had sucked the oxygen straight out of the room. I stared at the bread basket, at the flickering candle between us. At a drop of wax sliding down the side and freezing in place. "Jessica," Martha said, impatience creeping into her wheedling tone, "please don't make a scene, it's already done. The paperwork's with the family solicitor. We just wanted to tell you face to face so there'd be no surprises." "So it's done," I said, my voice suddenly steady. "You've already told the lawyer to transfer my portion of the trust to Chloe." "It's not a trust, Jessica," Thomas corrected quickly, too quickly. "It's a general estate distribution. Grandma left everything to me to distribute as I see fit, to my beloved son Thomas to care for the family." Standard wording, I am caring for the family. The part of the family that needs it. I really looked at him then, at the loose set of his jaw, the way his eyes kept darting to the left. He was lying not about his plan to give the money to Chloe but about the mechanism, about his authority. My silence made them uneasy. Chloe shifted in her seat. "God, don't be so dramatic," she said. "You make plenty of money, why do you even care? What were you going to spend it on? More vacations? Another cat?" "It's not about the money, Chloe," I said quietly. "Then what is it about?" Thomas snapped. "Because you're acting like you're about to be difficult. I told your mother you'd be difficult. You've always been so possessive." I took a slow breath, swallowing down everything I wanted to throw in their faces, the times I'd bilayed them out, the nights I'd driven drunk relatives home. The free babysitting, the endless emotional labor. I compressed it all into ice. "I just have one question," I said. Thomas rolled his eyes. "Go on." I met his gaze and didn't look away. "Did Grandma know?" The reaction was immediate. Martha flinched like I'd slapped her. Chloe frowned, confused. Thomas went chalk white, the color drained from his face so fast it was almost comical. He grabbed his water glass, his hand shook so badly the water sloshed onto the white tablecloth. That is irrelevant," he stammered. "Your grandmother is gone, Jessica. I am the head of this family now. Did she know," I repeated slower, "that you plan to ignore her specific wishes about how her assets should be divided? Did you tell her when she was lying in that hospital bed that you were going to cut me out?" "I didn't cut you out," Thomas hissed, leaning forward, voice a venomous whisper. "I am managing the estate, and how dare you talk about her like that? She would have wanted Chloe secure. She loved the great-grandchildren." "She did," I agreed, "but she also knew who visited her, who handled her appointments, and she knew who asked her for money every month for 10 years and who never asked for a cent." "You think you're better than us?" Chloe spat, her face flushing. "Just because you have a career, you're cold, Jessica. That's why you're alone. Grandma knew that too." "That's enough," Thomas barked, slamming his hand on the table. Heads turned at nearby tables. He didn't seem to care, he was rattled. "The decision is final, the transfer happens tomorrow morning. If you try to fight this, if you drag this family into court and waste money on lawyers, I will make sure you're cut off from every single person in this clan. Do you understand me?" I looked at the man who'd raised me, a man I'd once admired. All I saw was a bully. A bully who knew on some level that the ice under him was thin, even if he didn't yet know why. "I understand perfectly, Dad," I said. I picked up my purse. "I'm not staying for dinner." "Happy birthday to me." "If you walk out that door," Martha called after me, her voice trembling with rehearsed tears. "Don't expect us to call you." "I don't expect anything from you anymore," I said. I walked out into the cool night air. My migraine was gone. In its place was a humming electric adrenaline. I sat in my car and pulled out my phone. Thomas thought he'd won. He thought my silence meant his intimidation had worked. He thought the boilerplate in the will was his shield. He'd forgotten one crucial detail. Grandma hadn't only trusted Thomas. In fact, near the end, she hadn't trusted him at all. To understand why my father went pale when I mentioned Grandma, you have to understand my grandmother, Beatrice. She was steel-wrapped in silk. In the 70s, she'd built a small real estate empire while men refused to even shake her hand in meetings. She was sharp, observant, and utterly intolerant of fools. Growing up, I was the only one who really seemed to get her. Chloe was the baby, the performer, the one who danced for treats. I was the quiet child who sat in Grandma's study, organizing her files because the order soothed me. As we grew, those roles hardened. To my parents and Chloe, Grandma was a vault. To me, she was a person. In her last 5 years, as her health faded, Thomas became obsessed with preserving the estate. He talked nonstop about legacy and keeping assets in the family. I knew what that meant. Thomas had burned through a string of failed ventures, a restaurant that went under in 6 months, a sketchy tech startup that was basically a pyramid scheme. He was terrible with money. He loved the performance of wealth but had no discipline to sustain it. Chloe had married a man just like him, charming, irresponsible. They lived permanently beyond their means. The extension she'd mentioned at dinner, an extravagant sunroom with heated floors, had been half built for 2 years because they'd run out of cash. Grandma saw all of this. 6 months before she died, I sat by her hospice bed, just the two of us. The chemo had thinned her out, but her eyes were razor bright. "They're just waiting for me to die, Jessica," she rasped. "Your father is already counting the acres." "Don't say that, Grandma," I murmured, adjusting her blanket. "It's the truth," she snapped softly. "He thinks he's getting it all. He thinks being my son entitles him, and he thinks he can bully you out of your share because you're too polite." She squeezed my hand with unexpected strength. "Don't be polite, Jessica, promise me." "When the time comes, don't be polite, be smart," I promised, not really understanding. Sitting in my car outside Ledgerton, I understood. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the name, Mr. Henderson. He wasn't the family solicitor. Thomas used a bargain attorney in a strip mall who charged flat fees and did whatever Thomas wanted. Mr. Henderson was Grandma's personal lawyer. An elderly, intimidating man in a three-piece suit who billed $400 an hour and looked like he ate sharks for breakfast. Thomas hated him. Thomas believed Grandma had fired him years ago to save money. She hadn't. I hit call. It was 8:30 p.m. I expected voicemail. The line picked up on the second ring. "Jessica," his gravelly voice was calm. "I assume the birthday dinner did not go well." "They're moving the money, Arthur," I said, watching the restaurant doors where my family was probably ordering expensive wine on credit, celebrating. "Thomas told me tonight. He says as executor he can reallocate my share to Chloe. He says the transfer happens tomorrow morning." There was a pause, then a dry, papery chuckle. "Executor's discretion," Henderson repeated, savoring the phrase with disdain. "Thomas has always overestimated his own authority. He believes the will is the primary governing document." "Isn't it?" I asked, heart pounding. "For his share, yes," Henderson said. "But your grandmother and I created a separate structure for you, Jessica, intentionally to bypass him. He doesn't know it exists. We never filed the deed through his solicitor. We kept it quiet until it would be useful. He says he's going to the bank in the morning," I said. "Let him," Henderson replied. "I'll have a courier at the courthouse at 8 a.m. By the time your father walks into that bank, his authority won't just be suspended." He paused. "Jessica, he'll be walking into a federal crime scene." A shiver ran through me. This wasn't just defense, it was an ambush. "What do you need me to do?" I asked. "Nothing," Henderson said. "Go home, make some tea, turn off your phone. Tomorrow, the world changes for Thomas." I hung up and looked back through the restaurant window one last time. Chloe was laughing, her head thrown back. Thomas was pouring wine, Smug playing Lord of the Manor. They had no idea the ground under them had already given way. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, watching the digits on my clock crawl forward. 2:00 a.m., 3:30 a.m., 4:45 a.m. My much maligned, empty house felt different. Not lonely, fortified. By 7 I was dressed. I made coffee I couldn't drink, jittery with terror and anticipation, like I was balanced on the edge of a high diving board with no way to climb back down. At 8:05 my phone rang, not my father, Mr. Henderson. "Good morning, Jessica." His voice was clipped, precise. "The injunction has been delivered to the bank's legal department. A copy has been served on your father's solicitor. The estate assets are frozen." "Did it work?" I gripped the counter. "Perfectly," he said. "The manager of the main branch has been notified. When Thomas attempts to authorize a transfer, their system will flag the account as under litigation. He won't be able to move a penny, not to Chloe. Certainly not to himself. What do I do now?" "Now you come to my office," Henderson said. "There's something you need to see." While drafting the injunction, I had my forensic accountant do a preliminary review of the estate activity for the last 6 months, the period during which Thomas held power of attorney while your grandmother was in hospice. We found irregularities. The 40-minute drive to his office blurred. All I could hear was that word, irregularities, lawyer speak for theft. Henderson's office was in an old downtown brownstone with heavy oak doors and the faint smell of dust and leather. He sat behind a desk that looked like it had been built from a single felled tree. He didn't waste time on pleasantries. He gestured to a leather chair and slid a thick folder across the polished wood. Open it. Inside was a dense spreadsheet of numbers, dates, transaction codes. "What am I looking at?" I asked. "This," he said, tapping a highlighted column, "is the primary liquid asset account, the funds your grandmother intended to divide between you, Chloe, and the property maintenance fund." When Beatrice entered hospice, the balance was just under $2 million. He flipped the page. "This is the balance as of yesterday." I stared at the number. 450,000, I whispered. Where did the rest go?" "That is the question," Henderson said grimly. "Your father has been drawing down the account at roughly $50,000 a week for administrative expenses and consulting fees paid to a shell company in Delaware. He's been draining the estate before it even hits probate." I felt physically ill. "He isn't just giving my share to Chloe because she needs it," I said slowly, horror blooming. "He needs my share because there isn't enough left to pay us both." "Precisely," Henderson nodded. "He needs your portion to plug the hole he dug. If he paid you what you're owed, the account would overdraft, and his embezzlement would be obvious. By guilt-tripping you into donating your share to Chloe, he could hand her the remaining scraps, pose as the hero, and conceal that he stole over $1 million. The room tilted slightly. It wasn't just favoritism or bullying, it was a crime, a deliberate, sustained betrayal. He had looked me in the eye at dinner, lectured me about morality and family duty, while knowing he'd looted his own mother's legacy as she lay dying. "We have him, Jessica," Henderson said quietly. "This isn't just grounds for removal as executor, this is prison time." My phone started buzzing on the desk. Dad lit up the screen. Henderson nodded. "Answer, speakerphone, don't agree to anything." "Just listen." I inhaled, hit accept, and set the phone down. "Jessica," Thomas's voice exploded through the speaker, distorted with rage and panic. I heard traffic horns. He was in the car. "What did you do? What the hell did you do?" "I don't know what you mean, Dad," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "Don't play dumb," he shouted. "I'm at the bank. They're telling me the accounts are frozen. They're talking about a court order. The manager, some little punk, threatened to call security if I didn't calm down. He said I'm under investigation for fiduciary breach." "You are," I said, silence, heavy, charged, then his tone dropped to a low, dangerous growl. "You ungrateful little brat, you ran to a lawyer." "After everything we've done for you." "I went to Grandma's lawyer," I corrected. "Mr. Henderson." "Henderson," Thomas barked out a jagged laugh. "That walking corpse, he has no say." "I fired him. Grandma hired him," I said, drawing strength from the open file in front of me. "She created a separate trust, Dad, the Beatrice V. Miller Legacy Trust. She moved my inheritance into it 2 years ago. You don't control it, you never did. And because you tried to access it this morning with a general power of attorney, you triggered a compliance audit. You set me up," he sputtered. "I asked you a question," I said. "I asked if Grandma knew you were lying, so I let the legal system answer for her." "Undo it," he demanded. "Call Henderson right now, tell him it was a mistake, tell him to lift the freeze." "If you don't, Jessica, I swear to God I'll come over there and what?" I cut in. "Punch a wall like you used to when you lost money on stocks. Or just scream at me until I give in." "I'm coming to your house," he said. "We're going to settle this. You, me, and your mother. You are going to sign a waiver." "Don't come to my house," I said. "I'm not there. Where are you?" Suspicion crept into his voice. "I'm looking at the ledger, Dad," I said, letting the words hang. "I'm looking at the withdrawals, 50,000 a week. Consulting fees. Who is TVM Holdings, Dad?" The line went dead. Henderson studied me with something close to approval. "Well handled, but he won't stop. A man like Thomas cornered doesn't surrender, he attacks." "He said he's coming to my house," I said. "He will," Henderson replied, "and he'll bring the rest of the family. He needs witnesses to help browbeat you. He has lost the legal argument, so he'll try to turn this into an emotional one." "I have to go home," I said, standing. "I need to protect my space." "I'm not letting them intimidate me." "Take the file," Henderson said, pushing it toward me. "Make copies, don't let that original out of your sight. And Jessica, if you feel unsafe, call the police. He's your father, but right now he's also a desperate man facing indictment." I drove home with the file on the passenger seat like a live weapon. When I turned into my street, I knew I was already too late. My parents' SUV was sprawled across the curb, blocking my mailbox. Chloe's minivan was right behind it. They stood clustered on my front porch, Thomas pacing, face mottled red, Martha clutching a tissue and crying, Chloe rigid with crossed arms in fury. A lynch mob in weekend clothes. I pulled into the garage and closed the door before getting out. I wanted a solid wall between us. I slid through the interior door into my kitchen and checked the locks. Bam, bam, bam. "Open this door, Jessica," Thomas roared, pounding on the front door. "I know you're in there." I walked to the hallway. Through the frosted glass, his shape was distorted but unmistakable. I didn't open the door, I spoke through it. "Go away, Dad. Jessica, please." Martha's voice now thin and high. "Please, honey, let us in. We just want to talk. Your father is so upset. He's having chest pains. You're killing him." "He's not having chest pains, Mom," I said, resting my forehead briefly against the cool wood. "He's having a panic attack because he got caught." "Caught doing what?" Chloe shouted. "Trying to help me. You're such a jealous witch, Jess. You'd rather burn the money than let my kids have a good life." "It's not about the kids, Chloe," I finally yelled back, my control cracking. "It's about the fact that there is no money." Silence. "Total, what did you say?" Chloe's muffled voice came through, wary now. I undid the deadbolt and opened the door a few inches, leaving the security chain engaged. Through the gap I saw Chloe's confused face, Thomas bristling with barely contained rage. "Ask him," I said, pointing at Thomas with a shaking finger. "Ask Dad where the $2 million went. Ask why there's only 400-something left. Ask him about the consulting fees." "She's lying." Thomas lunged at the door. The chain strained as the wood shuddered under his weight. "She's a liar. She's trying to tear this family apart." I slammed the door shut and threw the locks. "I'm calling the police if you don't leave," I shouted through it. "You wouldn't dare," Thomas growled. "Try me," I said. "I have the ledger, Dad. I have everything." They didn't leave right away. For 20 more minutes they stayed on my porch. Thomas cycled between threats and pleading. Martha sobbed theatrically about how I was destroying the family legacy. Chloe said nothing. Eventually, the neighbors started drifting out onto their lawns, watching. Public embarrassment was the one thing that could penetrate Thomas's rage. He finally herded them into the cars. As they pulled away, he paused long enough to kick over my potted fern. When they were gone, I slid to the floor of my hallway and sat there, just breathing. The calm didn't last. By evening, my phone lit up in waves, not just my parents and Chloe, extended family, cousins I hadn't spoken to in years, aunts from Florida. "I heard what you did to your father," Aunt Sarah texted. "Freezing his accounts, how could you be so cruel? He's given you everything." "Really?" from Cousin Mike. "You're suing your own dad over money, that's low." Thomas had moved fast. He deframed me as the greedy, vindictive daughter suing the estate out of jealousy of Chloe. He'd conveniently left out the part about stealing over $1 million. He was relying on the old rule that family business stays private, that I'd be too ashamed to tell the truth. He miscalculated. I went into my home office and spread Henderson's documents across my desk. I needed to see the whole pattern, where every dollar had gone. Because that trail was the only thing that would break his hold on Martha and Chloe. For 4 hours, I cross-checked the consulting fees against public records. Henderson's forensic accountant had done the heavy work. I filled in the gaps. TVM Holdings, the shell company receiving the money, was registered to a dingy address in an industrial park. A quick search showed it was a virtual office. The signatory, according to a scanned corporate document in my file, was a man named Marcus Vane. I Googled him. Marcus Vane was a local investment guru, investigated twice for Ponzi-style crypto and high-yield real estate funds. Thomas hadn't just spent the money. He'd gambled it, thrown Grandma's legacy into a scam, hoping to double it and emerge as the genius heir. When the returns didn't come, he'd begun cannibalizing the principal to hide the losses. Then I found the smoking gun. Buried in the transactions was a line from 3 months ago, $40,000. Memo, Chloe contractor deposit. I frowned. Chloe had said the extension had been stalled for 2 years. If Dad had given her $40,000 3 months ago, the work should have been completed. I pulled up my text with Chloe. "Me, Chloe, did Dad give you $40K in October for the contractor?" Her reply came almost instantly. She was clearly glued to her phone. "Chloe, go to hell, Jessica. Me, I'm serious. The ledger shows a $40K transfer on Oct 12. Did you get it?" 3 dots appeared, vanished, reappeared. Chloe, no. "He said the estate was tied up in probate and he couldn't release funds until next year. That's why he said we needed your share. He said your share was liquid, but the rest was tied up in assets." I stared at the screen. The lie was a labyrinth. Thomas had pulled $40,000 from the estate, labeled it Chloe, but diverted it to himself or his debts. He'd used her name to disguise the theft. Me, he stole it, Chloe. It's marked as going to you, but the check was endorsed by him, not you. That's why he needs my share to cover the gap before the auditors see it. He's using you. No reply. I sent a photo of the ledger entry, the check image with his signature on the back. Me, call the bank, ask if a transfer to you went out on Oct 12, or ask Dad why that Chloe contractor check has his endorsement, not yours. Still nothing. Fine, the seed was planted. Chloe might be spoiled and entitled, but she was also perpetually broke. Nothing turns someone faster than discovering the money they're owed has already been stolen by the person promising it. The next morning, escalation arrived by courier, a thick envelope not from Thomas but from his strip mall lawyer, a cease and desist. It accused me of elder abuse, claiming I'd coerced Grandma into signing the trust while she was mentally incompetent. They were threatening to invalidate the entire structure. It was a last-ditch scorched earth move. To gain control, Thomas was willing to drag Grandma's mind through the mud and call her senile just to tear down what she'd built. I called Henderson. He's filed a motion contesting the trust, Henderson said, sounding more bored than alarmed. He claims Beatrice lacked testamentary capacity. He's lying, I said, shaking. She was sharp right to the end. We know, Henderson replied, and we have the video. Video, standard procedure for high-value estate changes with elderly clients, he said. I filmed the signing. Beatrice looks directly into the camera, states the date, confirms her intent, and this is important, explicitly says, I am doing this to protect my assets from my son Thomas, who has no head for business. It's admissible. It's devastating. When can we use it? I asked. Tomorrow, he said. Thomas has called an emergency family meeting at your Aunt Sarah's. He wants to mediate before formally filing the lawsuit. He thinks he can shame you into settling in front of the extended family. He thinks the threat of litigation is his trump card. He wants a public showdown, I asked. He wants your public surrender, Henderson corrected, but if you bring the ledger and the video, you can give him a public execution instead. Cold resolve settled over me. He wants to do this in front of everyone, I said, fine. I'll be there. Aunt Sarah's house had always been the designated neutral ground, a sprawling suburban place with overstuffed furniture and framed photos of grinning grandchildren on every wall. That Saturday it felt more like a courtroom. The living room was packed. Thomas sat in the center of the big beige sectional like a judge on a bench, Martha hovering tearful at his side. Chloe perched on the hearth pale, gnawing a fingernail. Around them sat the jury, Aunt Sarah, Uncle Mike, two older cousins, and Great Aunt Miller, stiff-backed in an armchair. When I walked in, conversation died mid-sentence. You came, Thomas said, voice dripping with wounded dignity. He didn't rise. Good. Maybe we can put this ugliness behind us. Have a seat, Jess, Aunt Sarah said, indicating a hard chair set up in the center of the room, facing the sofa. It looked deliberately like an interrogation spot. I'll stand, I said, gripping my bag. Inside were my laptop and the file. Jessica, Thomas began, slipping on his glasses and looking over the rims at everyone else. We're all here because we love you, but we're concerned. Your recent behavior, freezing the family accounts, threatening your own father with lawyers, suggests you're not well. The stress of your job, all this isolation, it's clearly affecting your judgment. I'm not isolated, Dad, I said evenly. You're attacking your own family, Uncle Mike cut in. Your dad is trying to manage Beatrice's estate for all of us and you're treating him like a criminal. Drop this lawsuit, it's shameful. He is a criminal, I said, each word clear, gasps. Martha let out a fresh wail. Oh, stop it, she cried. How can you say that about your own father? Thomas stood, color rising. That's enough. I called this meeting to give you a chance to apologize and sign the waiver. If you don't, I'll file the petition to void that so-called trust on Monday. We will prove you manipulated a senile old woman into cutting out her own son. Grandma wasn't senile, I said, and she didn't cut you out because of me. She did it because she knew exactly who you are. She didn't understand what she was signing, Thomas shouted, finally losing the polished facade. She was doped up on pain meds. She didn't even know the day of the week. Is that so? I asked. I walked over to the big flat screen above the fireplace. Chloe shrank back a little as I passed. I unplugged the HDMI cable from the cable box and connected it to my laptop. What are you doing? Aunt Sarah asked nervously. Showing you the truth, I said. I hit the space bar. The screen flickered, audio crackled to life. Grandma sat in her favorite armchair in her hospice room. Frail, yes, but her gaze was steady and sharp. Next to her, Mr. Henderson held a newspaper, the date clearly visible. State your name and intent, Henderson's off-camera voice said. Beatrice Victoria Miller, Grandma replied. Her voice filled the room, strong and unmistakably lucid. I am of sound mind. I am creating the legacy trust for my granddaughter, Jessica. On the sofa, Thomas went rigid. Turn that off, he snapped. This is private. Let her play it, Uncle Mike muttered, now leaning forward. On screen, Grandma continued, I am doing this separately from the main will because I do not trust my son Thomas with liquid assets. Over the last 20 years, I have bylaid him out of 6 failed business ventures. He has no respect for money, only for the status it buys. Martha gasped. Thomas looked physically ill. She's reading from a script, he stammered. Jessica wrote that, but the video rolled on. Grandma leaned closer, staring straight into the camera. Thomas, she said, I know you will see this. I know you'll fight it. You'll tell everyone Jessica is greedy, but we both know the truth. You feel entitled to what I built. You are not. This money is for Jessica because she is the only one who never asked me for a penny, she sighed, and for Chloe, poor Chloe. In the living room, Chloe's head snapped up. I wanted to leave money to Chloe, Grandma went on, but I know if I leave it to her directly, Thomas will talk her out of it or her husband will waste it. So I am leaving a strict instruction. If Thomas attempts to access the main estate before probate is complete, he is to be removed as executor immediately. The video ended. The screen went black. The silence in Aunt Sarah's living room felt absolute. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Thomas shook, eyes darting from face to face, seeing the doubt, the damage. She didn't mean that, he said weakly. She was confused. She seemed pretty with it to me, Tom, Uncle Mike said, voice low. There's one more thing, I said. I pulled the folder from my bag, removed an enlarged copy of the bank ledger and a printout of the check image, and walked over to Chloe. Look at this, I said gently. I don't want to, she whispered, tears sliding down her cheeks. Look, she did. I pointed to the line. October 12th, $40,000. Memo, Chloe contractor. Dad told you he couldn't give you anything because the estate was frozen, I said softly. But he withdrew $40,000 in your name 3 months ago. He cashed it. See the endorsement? That's not your signature, it's his. Chloe's hands trembled. She lifted her eyes to Thomas. You told me the court had it, she said, voice cracking. I had to take a payday loan to fix the boiler. I sold my engagement ring and you had $40,000. It's complicated, Thomas snapped, sweating. I was investing it. I was going to turn it into $80,000 for you. TVM Holdings was going to pay out next month. TVM Holdings is a Ponzi scheme, I said, delivering the final blow. I checked, the money's gone. All of it, the $2 million from the estate, the $40,000 for Chloe. You gambled Grandma's legacy away. The air seemed to leave the room. Martha made a strangled sound, not a sob, but a keen of pure loss. Her entire comfortable life, the house, the vacations, the illusion, disintegrated in a single moment of comprehension. Uncle Mike stood slowly. He looked at his brother like he'd never seen him before. You spent Mother's money, he said flatly. All of it. I was trying to build something, Thomas shouted, cornered. For this family, you don't understand the pressure. I understand that you're a thief, Chloe said. She got to her feet and walked toward him. For a second I thought she might hug him. Instead, she slapped him. Hard, the sound cracked through the room. Don't you ever, she hissed, mention my children again. You stole their future. Thomas turned to me, eyes wild, frantic. Jessica, please, you have the trust. You're fine. You can fix this. Just write a check, cover the losses. We can undo this. I looked at the man who had tried to rob me, smear me, and weaponize the family against me. I felt nothing but exhausted pity. No, Dad, I said, I can't fix this, but Mr. Henderson can. The police are on their way. The fallout was fast and merciless. Thomas was arrested that afternoon. Henderson hadn't exaggerated about the federal crime scene, because Thomas had wired money across state lines to the shell company and forged Chloe's signature on bank documents. He faced multiple counts of wire fraud and embezzlement. He fought, of course, hired another discount lawyer who mumbled about intent and misunderstanding, but the trail on paper told the whole story. 3 months later, he took a plea to avoid the risk of a 10-year sentence. He got 4 years in a minimum security facility and an order of restitution. There was nothing left to repay. My parents' house, the one I grew up in, had to be sold to cover the debts he'd stacked up. Martha was left with almost nothing. In a way, it was a tragedy for her. She'd spent 40 years enabling him, enjoying the illusion of wealth, looking away whenever reality peeked through the curtain. Now the curtain was gone. She moved into a small one-bedroom in a retirement complex. She's quieter now. She calls me once a week. For the first time in my life, she asks how I am and actually listens. I think finally she respects me, not because I have money but because I was the only one who stopped him, and Chloe, the truth shattered her. She realized that while she'd been the golden child, she'd also been the prime shield for Thomas's greed. He'd used her endless need as a cover for his theft. 2 months after the arrest, we met for coffee. She looked tired. The frantic, grasping energy she used to radiate was gone. "I'm sorry, Jess," she said, staring into her latte. "For what I said at the restaurant, for thinking you were the selfish one." "It's okay," I said. He played us off each other. If we were fighting, we weren't looking at him. "I don't know what we're going to do," she admitted, wiping at a tear. "The extension's still half finished. The twins need braces." "I know I have no right to ask, and I'm not asking, I'm just scared." I reached into my bag and took out a document, not a check, a trust deed. "I'm not handing you cash, Chloe," I said. "If I give you cash, your husband will spend it, or you'll use it to patch leaks instead of fixing the roof." She nodded, shoulders sagging, accepting the truth. I slid the paper toward her. "I set up an education and housing trust for the kids," I said. "Grandma's money, my share, is in there. It pays to finish your house, but directly to contractors I approve. It pays for school and medical bills, but directly to the providers." Chloe looked up, eyes wide. "Jess, you don't have to," she whispered. "Dad always said you hated kids." "Dad said a lot of things," I said, and even managed a smile. "I don't hate kids, I just didn't want my own, but I loved Grandma. And she wanted the great-grandkids safe. This is what she meant." Chloe broke down, sobbing. She reached across the table and grabbed my hand. It was the first genuine touch between us in years. "Thank you," she cried, "thank you." That night I drove home feeling lighter than I had in a long time. My house was quiet, not empty, peaceful. I went into my study and looked at the framed photo of Grandma Beatrice on my desk. She was smiling that knowing, secretive smile. "We did it, Grandma," I whispered. "We were smart. And we weren't polite." I poured myself a glass of wine, settled into my favorite chair, and watched the sun sink outside my window. I had my life, I had my integrity. And for the first time, I had a family built on truth instead of secrets. It was the best birthday present I could have imagined.